Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to you all. Are we ready for the youth session? No, I really want to feel the energy in the room. Are we ready for the youth session? I'm pretty excited here. So you're welcome to the Changemakers of today, Youth Advancing Sustainable Action Session. And I have such wonderful young people leading great innovative actions in their communities. And we want to learn more about these sustainable actions that they are leading in their communities to be able to understand how young people play a role in energy access, how they can be supported, and how we can drive these innovative actions on a larger scale to achieve great impact. So this session briefly looks at the role and the influence of young people in climate, energy, and development efforts that has grown in recent years. Through education, technology, entrepreneurship, and policy, youth are tapping into the skills to drive change. The emerging power of youth change makers to lead a just energy transition must be celebrated and supported and encouraged, while empowering more youth to especially act as change agents in cooking and adjacent sectors. About 90% of the world's 1.8 billion youth live in developing countries, where 2.4 billion of people still rely on polluting fuels and stoves for their food. The negative impact of outdated cooking on young people is substantial in terms of the size of the youth population affected and the cross-cutting nature of the adverse impact on youth, including health, climate, local environment, education, and employment. Yet far from being passive victims, youth are powerful change makers with a vital role in achieving universal access to clean cooking, contributing to cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable future that young people need to thrive in. As successful innovators, entrepreneurs, advocates, researchers, and much more, young people are critical for strengthening the clean cooking sector. This session is comprised of youth who are leading on clean cooking and sustainable energy to demonstrate why equitable inclusion of youth in clean cooking sector is essential for sustainable progress. So our panel here would showcase what young entrepreneurs and innovators are doing to tackle clean cooking challenges and identify what support young people need to scale up their efforts. So ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to join us actively to this session. So I'll start from my right. We'll have a brief introduction, tell us what you do and what your organization is about.
Thank you. My name is Kakembo Brian, and I'm the founder and CEO of Way Clean Energy. It's a social enterprise that deals in waste to energy technologies, and our products include briquettes, biogas, and institutional coke stoves. These are a hybrid. The ones we produce are a hybrid of solar and biomass. And we also partner with CBOs, NGOs in the local communities to train youth and women, give them the skills and knowledge to invest in the briquetting industry across the whole value chain, all the way from the agricultural waste, getting the agricultural waste, processing them, and also selling the briquettes afterwards. And also on the board of directors of Student Energy, a global organization for youth that is kind of like accelerating the future of energy across the globe. Actually, we have over 50,000 youth in our network, so I'm really to be here and talk about the future of youth in energy.
I think a round of applause for this great innovator.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Patience Alifo, and I'm the co-founder of Econexus Ventures Limited. So Econexus Ventures Limited is a Ghanaian social enterprise. We are in the production of ethanol fuel, and we currently have two products, that is the ethanol gel and the ethanol liquid. And we also have its special cooking stove that we sell along with the ethanol fuel and ethanol gel. In Ghana here, we have our market targets as the households, the food vendors, and the student. And we've been able to penetrate no less than 5 communities in Ghana here. And we are looking forward to expand our market and go commercial. Thank you.
The work is pretty impressive. A round of applause for her.
Hi everybody, I'm Karine Buma. I'm a professional officer at ICLI Africa. So ICLI is an NGO. It's a network of local governments in Africa. We work with local governments, supporting them across a number of sustainable development agendas. So thinking of climate change, energy, clean cooking, biodiversity, just a range of topics. So we have a network of over 450 cities that we work directly with. And what I'm doing in the clean cooking space, I'm managing a project that aims to improve access to clean cooking to the urban poor, particularly the informal settlements in 2 pilot cities at the moment. So in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and also in Kampala. I'm really honored to be here and to share my experience as well. Thank you.
Very impressive. A round of applause for her as well.
Yes, hi everyone. By the name's Ben Odongo, and I work as a youth fellow in energy for the UN High-Level Climate Champions. The UN High-Level Climate Champions is a mandate of the UNFCCC, which most of you must be aware of, and our work mainly evolves around driving partners and non-state actors towards the race to zero and also the race to resilience. And we do this mostly through COP27 dialogues for this year, but of course in the past years, COP26 and the rest. Specifically, other youth fellow in energy, my work focuses on clean cooking in Africa and advancing, dialogues and bringing the voices of the youth into what we call breakthroughs and also what we call deliverables for each of these COPs. And besides my work with the Climate Champions team, I also work as the head of electric cooking at Up Energy Group. So Up Energy Group is an impact-focused company headquartered in Uganda. We do distribute improved cook stoves, biomass. We're also expanding into electric cooking, and I'm currently leading on the project to expand, our product portfolio to electric cooking, but also expand the company's geography, beyond Uganda to other countries, including Zambia, Tanzania, by end of this year. And next year, we'll also be going to 3 to 4 more different countries in Africa. I'm very glad to be here and looking forward to sharing some of my experience with you all.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for him.
Good afternoon. Great. Good afternoon. I'm Samira Saidi from BIX Capital. So BIX Capital is an impact fund that's based in the Netherlands, and we pre-finance carbon credits, gender and health credits, along with other credits. So we pre-finance impact credits in a nutshell. So BIX Capital is invested in by IFC, FMO, Shell Foundation, and DFC. Our mandate is to create impact in clean cooking, to improve the race to net zero. And we do this by working with manufacturers as yourselves, and many of you have visited your exhibitions and seen your contribution also to reduction of carbon, improving health and gender. So in manufacturers like yourselves. And we work together to pre-finance the impact credits on this. So looking forward to sharing insights on this, and yeah, looking forward to the session.
A round of applause for her. I mean, we have amazing young people, from innovators to those who have the money to support us, to the policy people. Yeah, so to zoom straight into the discussions, but before, my name is Richard Mate. I'm the coordinator for the Youth Climate Council Ghana and your moderator for this session. I think I deserve a round of applause too. So, to start off, how can young people contribute to the strengthening of the clean cooking sector? We want to know what young change makers are doing to tackle the clean cooking challenge. And this question I would want to hear from all of you as your opening remarks. So let me do the honors to start with the lady on my right.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think just gauging from the energy in the room, this is the only plenary session I've attended where the audience cheers after every person speaks and to introduce. So it shows like the energy and the passion that young people have in climate change and in climate action. And we play a big role because we live in these communities, we use these technologies. It is our daily lives that are impacted by our actions and by clean cooking in particular. So who's best to solve the problems other than the youth? We know the challenges we face and we come up with the solutions. I think the youth can play a role all through the value chain, and speaking specifically towards finance and impact, it only makes a difference if the youth are represented in such circles. So if you have youth in investment circles, then you're likely to think of solutions, funding solutions, financial instruments that are appealing towards the project that the youth are passionate about and the youth are implementing. So it's only when we are involved and we are participating in such circles that our problems are solved all through, from finance to coming up with projects that are funded by the youth. Yeah, and from a financial perspective, I would say the reason why maybe the youth haven't been included in the past is because of the perceived risk in young entrepreneurs, because they don't have much experience in running a business. And there is a perceived risk, not to say that they're risky, but there's a perception of risk. So it is important for the youth to also participate in decision-making circles and to be part of the table in coming up with financial instruments that would be appealing to their products. But I'm sure we'll go into that in the next session.
Sure, thank you very much. So, Ben, you are involved a lot in the policy space with your work at the high-level champions. What are some of the things that policy-wise are being done to support young people to contribute into strengthening the clean cooking sector?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, so I think the first step has always been, bringing more youth voices to the table, to forums like this. And as you can see, this is like a youth event. And I think, just being able to hear from the different youth, whether it's in finance, whether it is the youth that are having startups. So I think the first step is really being, at the policy level, is really engaging youth, including in some of these forums to get some of the ideas from the youth. But I think, at the Climate Champions, one of the key things that we try to do differently, or that we have started to do differently, is to try and make sure that the participation of the youth is more accountable, because it's very often we find like when youth participate, especially in policy dialogues, it's more of like a tokenized participation. So, youth are invited not because the organizers actually care about the youth voices or hearing the opinions of the youth, but they just want to tick that checkbox, like, we had youth present, we had this. And what we have seen in the recent past, we have COP27, which is like 24 days away from now. This year's COP, we are having the first ever youth envoy. Some of you might know Dr. Omonia. Yeah, she's going to be the youth envoy for youth, and she's she's sort of like at a very high level, and she's definitely bringing all our voices, all the youth voices into these conversations. We also have the first ever youth pavilion in this COP27, so that's also like another way of sort of like trying to bring, you know, youth participation at the highest level, but also making sure that that participation is actually actionable, and, you know, the voices of the youth are not just being documented, but there's actually action towards, you know, all the things that youth talk about, you know. So I would sum it up and just say, like, for now it's more of a transition from what youth have been saying to actually actionizing what youth have been saying, because youth have always talked about all these different challenges that they have, and now we are looking at, you know, putting that into action.
Yeah, so looking at that from what has been said, Karen, what do you think, or how can we support and encourage the emerging power of youth change makers to lead a just energy transition?
That's a very good one. I mean, to start with, we have a lot of jargons that we are using these days in this sector. So there's the just energy transition, there's climate justice. I was interestingly in a workshop last week with climate experts, and the question on what is climate justice was asked, and many people were struggling to articulate what climate justice even means, right? We're using a lot of jargons in this space that sometimes are derailing us from what we actually want to do or need to be doing. Bringing it back to the space of youth, of energy, just energy transition, and what needs to be done to enable the youth in this space. I'll take it back to the government sector, because that's where I work very closely with local governments in African cities. And through my work with cities, I've supported or worked with them in developing action plans, energy action plans, climate action plans. And interestingly enough, I would hardly find youths in these sessions. I would hardly find people that look like me in these sessions where we are talking about where do we want to be in the next 10 years with respect to energy, energy access, what should we be considering, what targets should we be setting. There is that huge gap that I don't know if we've taken the time to sit back and just reflect on why there's this gap and what we need to do. I think there's so much happening. There's the climate crisis, there's the energy crisis in Africa, there's the clean cooking access crisis, which is very peculiar to the sub-Saharan African sector. There are a lot of other challenges peculiar to the youth, so like unemployment, access to education, and the rest. And we need to act fast, but I think what we need to actually do is to pause and reflect, to slow down and reflect. I feel things are moving so fast that at times we lose the objective. We even forget why we are doing the things we are doing. Like he rightfully mentioned, sometimes we do these things just as a checkbox exercise. Like so much is going on to improve access to clean cooking in sub-Saharan Africa. Why is the trajectory on the opposite? Why are the number of people without clean cooking access rather increasing instead of improving, or instead of increasing? So I think the local governments, the authorities themselves, they need to pause, they need to reflect, they need to think of what we are doing, how are we failing, and how are we learning from the errors that we've been doing. And there's so much talk also on youth involvement, youth engagement. I think if we pose that question out here as to what is actually this youth involvement or youth engagement we're talking about, a lot of people would have various definitions on what they think youth involvement should be. And most of them, I'm not surprised, it's going to be very basic. You know, invite youth to sit and listen, which is one of them, but it's just the least. It's at the bottom of the ladder if you were to classify it that way. There are different ways in which we should be involving the youth, not just as a checkbox exercise, not just consulting them, but collaborating with them, seeing the youth as partners, as people who would be influenced by the decisions that we are making today, and actually involving them, getting their inputs and involving them in the decision-making table. I think that's very critical. And one thing also that needs to be done, I think we need to take the active role of also training those in decision-making or the local government authorities. They need to know who is a youth to start with. What are the different groups of youths? And who do you interact with when you talk about youth? Do you keep on calling the same person over and over to attend 1,000 events without considering those in marginalized areas? Are you having a good representation of the different youth groups within the community? I mean, there's so much that needs to be done or that can be done, but I can reflect on that a bit more later. I'll pass the floor to my colleague here.
Yeah, I think the different ways of engagement when it comes to young people, because youth issues are very diverse, and if you talk about young people, we fall within different classes. So yes, we really need to rethink when it comes to youth inclusivity and youth engagement. But before I come to you, Patience, Kakembo, you employ a lot of young people. You are really on the ground. So I want to learn from you as an innovator and as a businessman. How are you empowering more young people, especially those in the vulnerable communities, the vulnerable groups, to become successful agents of change in the clean cooking sector?
Thank you so much. One thing we need to first understand, we need to define marginalized, right? So different communities are marginalized because of different reasons. And so my project works with people who are from the rural farming communities, people from refugee camps, people from slums within urban communities, right? And all of them have different issues that are kind of different constraints to access opportunities. Maybe in the rural farming communities, there's poor education systems, so they can't get information, they can't get skills, they can't access good skills, right? And so first and foremost is to identify how to bridge that gap and then give them the skills. So we are having this new project called the Bricket Preneurs ecosystem project, where we are trying to kind of bring everything to the youth group. So we get this youth group, we train them. That's number one. So capacity building, we train them, we give them the information and the skills. Number two, we bring them a prefabricated factory, briquette factory, small scale, but still good scale for them to start with. So this is a shipping container that is fabricated into a production unit, an office, and a drying unit for their briquettes. And so immediately after they get the skill, they have where to implement the skill. So, which is quite unique from many of the capacity building programs that just give skills. There is need to give them where to apply the skills because they are from a community where they are in lack of opportunities. So you have to create that opportunity too. And then on top of that, then they also lack the networks to actually market their products. So we still come in and use our own, as a social enterprise, our own market network, and then connect them to the market. So we go in the same community where they come from. There are schools that need energy. And so we go to those schools and then negotiate a contract for them and then get them selling their products. So immediately they start producing, they have market. And then we also negotiate the suppliers of the agricultural waste that they're going to use to make briquettes. And so this young person comes and gets, we're trying to level the playing field, let's say. So youth in urban communities and well-off homes have had the networks, the education, the skills, and this one has really got nothing. So we're trying to literally give everything to that person, but then help them commit to that project or process in form of debt financing. So all this is going to be kind of like a loan for them. And so as they start producing, they start paying back, but then we're not taking that money for us, we're taking it to create the next project. So literally we are just creating the ecosystem for them to thrive and survive.
Yeah, I'll come to you on that, on how you are creating or facilitating this ecosystem for young people and other small-scale businesses of young people to really thrive, and this kind of support your organization, your company also provides for them. But Pat, I'd like to know because you have a cook stove innovation that supports clean cooking, and I want to find out from you, how do young people experience the negative impact of polluted cooking? I mean, how does lack of access to these clean cooking technologies limit opportunities for young people?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So with young people, most of them, let me use Ghana as a case study, most of them don't have the resource to, cater for electric stoves and LPG gas. So when there is no alternative fuel that is cost efficient, they end up using the outdated cooking fuel, and that affects their health. The smoke that comes out from the wood fuel affect their eye, affect their chest. My team and I, we did some research, and we realized that most of them were complaining from the smoke from this outdated fuel, that is charcoal. And most of them really want to move to, clean cooking fuel, but most of them do not have the knowledge that this fuel exists. So right now, we have to educate them or create the awareness that there's something called ethanol fuel, there's something called efficient cooking stove that is cost efficient that they can purchase. So most of these young people, especially in Ghana, have no knowledge about it. I'm using myself as an example. I'm a final year student at GIMPA. And I remembered our lecturer gave us a project to work on, and I was able to convince my team members that let's use clean cooking fuel as our project topic. And most of them was like, what is it? What is clean cooking fuel? All we know is charcoal, LPG gas, and the prices of LPG is rapidly going, so what is this clean cooking fuel? Right. So I need to take my time and educate them. So even in my class now, most of them call me clean cooking fuel because I've been able to, educate them on it. So young people, most of them have no knowledge about clean cooking fuel. None of them even know about ethanol fuel until we presented in our class our work. Then everybody started clapping and appreciating it. So if there is awareness and there's education on alternative fuel, that is ethanol fuel, most of them will love to use it. Even in our various universities, most of the universities do not allow students to use charcoal. Most of them have to use electric stoves, and they have to pay for it very expensive. That is so expensive for the students. And even in the hostels, they don't allow them to use LPG gas because they believe that when they use the LPG and there's explosion, it's going to affect their hostel. So most of them have to rely on food vendors. They have to buy food outside. They don't even cook. They have to rely on food. So some of the food causes health implications that they don't even have knowledge about. So if you're able to provide alternative clean cooking fuel, like ethanol fuel for these young ones, they'll really appreciate it. Like for EcoNexus Ventures, we have one particular one called the gel fuel. That one comes with a single burner. It's very portable. The students could even use it in their various hostels, and they wouldn't have any issue because it's safe to use. But none of them have this knowledge. They don't even know that something like this exists. So we need to create awareness, and we need to make this fuel accessible to the young people. And in Africa, we have 1.8 billion young people here. That means that when we're talking about clean cooking or clean cooking fuel, young people shouldn't be exempted because we contribute to the, high number of people in Africa. So with the young people, we need to know that there's something called clean cooking fuel. We need to create the awareness, and we need to make it accessible to them. Thank you.
Accessibility is key, and awareness is key. We'll talk more about that. But back to you, Kakembo. You talked about this enabling environment, the ecosystem, but I'd like to find out from you, because you're also with the Student Energy Network, providing support to over 5,000 members or 50,000 members across over 120 countries, right? Yeah, so what should the clean cooking sector do to attract more young people and also facilitate their meaningful engagement, especially when it comes to young people from communities that are deprived, young people who are not aware, like Patience mentioned, of clean cooking technologies that can help them in terms of their health and their environment. Yeah, so talk to us and let us understand what the sector can do to attract more young people and also improve meaningful engagements with young people.
Thank you. Yesterday I was in a session where it was a final session yesterday, and one of the gentlemen they called to conclude the session said we should invite more celebrities into these conversations, right? I think it was a smart strategy. I've always had radical strategies, and that's why my MBA professor created a new category of entrepreneurs for me, and that's called the stubborn entrepreneurs. I believe that we should be a bit more radical in the things we do nowadays. For example, if you brought Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi into such conversations, trust me, youth are going to come to this forum, and there will be so many.
That's
and
right.
they will come for the wrong reason, but then they will leave with the right message, right? And so that's one of the things we need to be a bit more deliberate on, right? Find new approaches to get them into the room, and then kind of like twist the message to get to them. And then also speaking on the side of student energy is we have to create the capacity building, right? Student energy has a lot of programs that are doing career training within energy. See, Africa, our academic, I would say, I don't want to abuse our education system, but it's not really deliberate to such issues like clean cooking, climate change and all, right? We are just given a generic economics, generic health, generic everything. So we now have to find ways of fine-tuning this education system to make sure that these issues are brought to all the students across the nations and across the continent. And Student Energy has a program that is doing this with different chapters within universities. And so that's the fastest way to get to people, because these universities bring in a lot of students who are on scholarship, who are not on scholarship. And this is like a group of young people, energetic, enthusiastic. Give them the right tools, right? The right knowledge, the right skills, and the right jargons to be able to kind of like be in these conferences too, right? So it gives them that kind of self-confidence, self-awareness, and then they'll be part of the conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And let me come to you, Karen, briefly, because you work with governments, subnational governments, and you also earlier on touched about the fact that young people need to be included when it comes to the decision-making processes. I want to know how governments, or what you think these national governments should do to create that enabling environment to promote and foster meaningful youth engagement in the clean cooking sector.
Yeah, that's a very good one. So meaningful youth involvement, I like the word meaningful. So it's not necessarily a checkbox exercise that we are doing to fulfill righteousness or fulfill what we hear others are doing. So what governments need to do, or local government or national government authorities need to be doing, I think we need to take a more intentional approach. So involving the youth at every level of whatever we are doing within the local government, be it brainstorming, be it actual planning, be it implementation, be it monitoring and evaluation. Even if you feel like the youth are too young to understand what is going on in the room or make meaningful contributions, let them in, let them participate and just listen in for the start. One of the biggest leaders, Nelson Mandela, I think he mentioned that he learned his leadership skills by participating in his father was a local chief. He participated in most of these discussions where his father was, and he was not necessarily contributing to these discussions. You know, the typical African style. Normally when your seniors are discussing, they send you to the room, you're not qualified to be part of that discussion. And I think we've taken that habit and attitude to even the way we govern, the way we lead our, cities or countries, which is not helping us. We should intentionally develop a strategy, be it at the organizational level or also at the public sector, to involve youth. And in addition to that, youths or get mentees. You should mentor people. Identify someone that you can advise, you can mentor across their career path, but also with respect to clean cooking. Like she mentioned, the awareness is not there. What are we doing, those of us who are aware of clean cooking, to ensure that those on the streets, the youths, those in this sector know what clean cooking is and what they can be doing to participate or to contribute to success in this sector. A key measure of success for us is the leaders of today, and in Africa, most of them are above 90. In my precious country, Cameroon, above 70 and 80. Those are the leaders we have at the national government level. The key question is, 10 years down the line, when you leave government, retirement or whatever the case may be, do you feel confident that your legacy, hoping that it was a good one, would be carried on by the youths that we have today, which are averagely less than 30 years? If something were to happen, would you comfortably pick up the 25-year-old or 30-year-old person sitting next to you to fill that position and run with it? If you cannot say that at this point, it means you're not doing your role, you're not performing your role as a leader well, you're not mentoring, you're not involving youth enough so that they can learn and they can also actively participate and contribute to making policies that would affect us. Of course, we are the future. Policies that are affecting us should be decided by us. I think these are very critical things. And even for us, the youth, what are we doing in the waiting period while we are complaining about unemployment, lack of opportunities, policies here and there, and all the challenges that we are faced with? If an opportunity were to be dropped in this room here and now, how many people would pick it and roll with it? If a grant of, I don't know, £1,000,000 or whatever the case might be, were dropped here, do we have the ideas that are ready to actually implement them? Do we have what it takes to fill those roles? I think it's both ways. The leaders should be playing their part, but also the youths should be playing their part, should be enriching themselves with the skills needed. The technology, ICT, is very critical. There are a lot of things that both parties need to play in order to enable the youth to lead the clean cooking transition.
Oh, I'm really inspired by this because I think it's important for us as young people to actually prepare ourselves to take advantage of the opportunities when they present ourselves, because we don't only have to look to our leaders to create the enabling environment, but we as enablers can create that space. We as young people or change makers can prepare ourselves well for these opportunities that are ahead of us. And I like the fact that you mentioned something which is very key, mentorship. As young people, we need to avail ourselves for mentorship, to be mentored by the elders, to learn, to be able to, because it will help in making meaningful contribution to our work. Yes, but I am very happy that we have a young woman entrepreneur on our panel, because in our part of this world, I mean, it's very rare working to promote women in renewable energy. I'm happy, and we should applaud her for that. Let's celebrate our woman co-founder. Please, let's do it better. Let's celebrate her very well. She's done extremely well as a student, being a woman entrepreneur. I want you to share with us what are some of the challenges you have faced as a co-founder and also as a woman in the clean cooking sector.
Okay, So I want to start by saying this short story. So when I was at the age of 19, I watched a documentary on Eco Africa, and the documentary boiled down to how trees are being, cut every year to provide wood for charcoal for various communities, and they were affecting our trees and causing deforestation and climate change. So as a young person, you know, with the young ones, we are very curious. So I was so curious, and I did a research on why this was a major challenge in Ghana and in Africa. And I realized that they had no alternative fuel, so they had to use it. So I formed a team, and we came up with a solution. We started first with the Bricket, and now with the team, right now we are into the ethanol. When I was young, at the age of 19, I was a student. So one of the major challenges I faced was combining academics with the new idea, because as a new idea, you need to, groom it very well for it to become something sustainable. And I was combining my academics with this project. And sometimes I need to miss class texts, midterm exams, just to make sure that I get this product to the market. And as young as I was, I availed myself to mentorship, as you mentioned. So I signed up to acceleration programs, incubation programs, and sometimes I had to miss 1 week lectures just to attend the acceleration program and incubation programs. And I availed myself to conferences like African Climate Week to network, to get key stakeholders in the industry. And sometimes I need to miss lectures just to attend those conferences. But looking back, I think it was worth it, because without those networking, without those incubation program, acceleration program, mentorship, I wouldn't have built the product to launch into the market. So it was worth it. So that was one major challenge. Another challenge is working capital, because most of the funding or grant that we get as a company most go into acquiring machines for production, but there's no, working capital for us, especially when it comes to managing the team, getting things done. We find it difficult to get working capital. So I urge that most of the grants, most of the funding, some should also go into working capital. So these are the two major challenges: combining academics with the business and also working capital funding, access to funding as well.
Yeah, I love your persuasion. And it's key. Funding is quite a challenge. And it's good that we have our investment manager here. I want to find out from her, Samira, why youth inclusive funding? Why is youth inclusive funding so crucial for advancing sustainable actions? And how can we address this issue of funding, which has been highlighted by Patience here?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the need for funding, for youth inclusive funding, is well explained by Patience here, because she said, as in her own words, that she needs it for working capital to fund her project. And I think that's the message I've had interacting with various entrepreneurs during this week so far, in the past 2 days, that yes, they need funding. There is need for funding to take it into working capital, to scale up, to improve the technologies. I think the reason for need for funding is obvious, but the key message is, why is it so difficult for young entrepreneurs to access funding in the past or even now? Why is it so difficult? Why do you feel like you've been locked out of funding? And the reason would be, I think it's in the clean cooking sector as a whole, there has been a lot of reliance on grant funding. That you take a grant either from a foundation, an NGO, the government, and this is enough maybe to just build a prototype for your business, but it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, doesn't fund your working capital needs. But this also calls for another type of funding. And for most people I've interacted with and asked the question, why do you think you need, what type of funding do you think you need? Most people only know about grants and a commercial loan from a bank, then nothing else. but there are so many options out there, but I think there's a lack of knowledge about what is accessible to the youth in terms of funding. There are myriad of opportunities for you, but I think from what I've listened to in this session and through my interactions is that there is a knowledge gap, almost like an asymmetry of information, where you don't know what is available to you, and at the same time, how do you get ready for funding, being a small business? Mentorship is a key thing, and not only mentorship from someone who's experienced, but a more holistic mentorship and training on financial literacy. Because how many of your businesses are actually operational with good financials that you can explain and you can make a good pitch to an investor? That's a skill that most young entrepreneurs don't have. So it is a skill that needs to be improved. In other words, storytelling, which is a key skill that many people ignore. But for any investor, for you to invest and put your money in a business, you need to believe in it. And if the entrepreneur can't explain what their business is about, they don't know their financial needs, they don't know what amount of money it will take to get them from point A to point B, then it becomes difficult for any investor to invest in you. So it is financial literacy that's key for every entrepreneur, and not to take it for granted. That at the same time, being in the right networks, accessing the right type of funding, knowing what type of funding is needed. A commercial bank won't give a startup a loan. So it's rather difficult for an early entrepreneur who's starting out to access funding. But it's also a challenge to investors like us to try and create financial instruments that are relevant to young entrepreneurs who have a good vision, understand their business, to get an instrument that's not too expensive, but at the same time has an impact in the sense that it is coming in to help the business to grow, and patient enough to grow with the business. There are a myriad of financial instruments that are accessible to young entrepreneurs, as I said. And it's up to investors as well to think about how they can create financial instruments that are less risky or less expensive and accessible. But it's a conversation that we can have for a long time. But it's both for investors to rethink the available types of financial instruments and for entrepreneurs to also scale up and be more literate about the financial instruments that are available.
Financial literacy is very key. It will help young entrepreneurs to be able to make a business case for the various innovations. Yes, I want to quickly go to our floor and take 3 quick questions. I would suggest that if you have a question, you lift up your hand, be very brief and concise and straight to the point. So I see a hand at the back. Yes, the gentleman in blue. Can someone help with the microphone? Yeah. Be very brief and precise for us. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Emmanuel Brown. I work with Olive Worldwide. I want to ask a question. It's like everybody at the platform, they are all leaders. My question goes this way. There's a saying that was being made by a hero that the independence of Ghana is meaningless except it is linked up to the total liberations of other African countries. My question is, how many of our youths out there, we talk about a lot of platforms that are watching over what is going on now in order to build their own personal capacity? Because it's like we, the youths or the young people, we are used to at least building our personal capacity as leaders. But how many? I can boldly say this, as for me, I have linked up because we registered even virtually that my youths outside there at least from Gambia and then other member states. They are watching what is going on. So I want to ask the leaders that are there. That is number one. Number two, my question also goes to...
limit to one question.
The last one, please.
One question, please. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Can we have the... Yes. No, I think you raise your hand. Yes, you in black. Yeah. Then.
Hello, my name is Ranan Gupta. I'm a high school student at Lincoln Community School in Accra, Ghana. And my question was for anyone who wants to answer. Apart from the social reward, what incentives do youth in developing countries or rural areas have to actually lead change and to lead to lead change in climate change or clean cooking? Because in my experience, I see that a lot of youth rather work towards migrating towards developing countries or migrating towards their own personal development. So what incentives do youth have to spark such change?
Okay, thank you very much. The last question.
Thank you. My name is Josh Dochi. I'm with Heart of Foundation, and my question goes to Ms. Samira. So within BICS's financial resource mobilization, what are the carbon markets explored, and what are the entry points that the organization leverages?
Thank you very much for the question. So I'll start with you, Samira. The last question was addressed to you, and then you add your last words to it.
Could you please recap the question? So you're not audible enough.
Yes, I was saying that within your financial resource mobilization, are the carbon markets being explored? And what are the entry points that you guys leverage?
Are carbon markets
being explored in your financial resource mobilization? Explored, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, yes, indeed. That's a very relevant question, more so because BICS Capital, the company I work for, the investment fund that I work for, works in the carbon space. So we pre-finance impact credits, and one of the main impact credits that we pre-finance is carbon credits. And maybe not to assume that everyone is aware about the carbon markets. The idea is that through the use of improved cooking, you're able to reduce carbon emissions, and these carbon emissions can be monetized. And I think this also goes to address the question that you had, sir, about how the youth can benefit other than just social benefits. That you can indeed get monetary benefit from the carbon emissions that are monetized. And how is this done? There are various carbon methodologies that exist that try and say and quantify the carbon emissions reduced from each technology. So a biogas system, for instance, will have a different carbon reduction emission to a cook stove, an improved cook stove, and a different type of quantity emissions from what you're using for bioethanol. But these are existing methodologies that are in the market, and you can register your project. So you can register your project and get an off-taker who's willing to buy the credits. So this is a monetary benefit that such businesses can benefit from carbon emissions. I'm told my time is up, but
yes.
we can
Ben,
talk later.
15 seconds. Yeah, they asked 3 questions. One on...
yeah, maybe you can repeat. There's like a lot of echo this side.
No, because of time, let's hear your final takeaway message. Hello, Ben. Your takeaway message.
Yeah, so I think just to summarize from my end, I think what is most important for us as youth is to start to hold ourselves also accountable. You know, I'm from Uganda, and I think in the neighboring country, Kenya, you know, there was an election very recently, and I think the main campaign message during that campaign was what the incoming president was going to do for the youth, you know, so the popular story of the hustler and all that. And I think, like, as youth, as we begin to show our voice, like as in Uganda we are 70%, if we begin to show that we as youth have the power to change some of these things, then our leaders will begin to listen to us.
Thank you very much, Karen. Your final takeaway message.
Yeah, just a final wrap-up summary. I think there are a lot of actors in this sector, and this goes to what I said at the beginning, that we need to slow down and rethink. There are a lot of people working in silos, a lot of entrepreneurs doing similar things, a lot of funders doing similar things that do not know each other. We are not learning from each other's mistakes. We are not benefiting from production at scale, because we are producing at very small scale. Funders will not want to fund very small initiatives, at least for the startups. We need to come together, and I think the Clean Cooking Alliance has tried to do that, but we also need to be more intentional about working together, leveraging from experiences of the others, and just producing massively, not really just piloting only, but going at it all in and really driving the transition. And it's, I think, a call to action for all organizations, all local government authorities and national government. There should be a youth integration strategy that cuts across all departments within the local, within your organization or the entity, where youth are participating at every level. I think it's something that we've been minimizing for so long, and we need to be more intentional about it. That would be my take home. Yeah.
Yeah, so finally, I also want to say that with engaging young people, we should find a platform that young people are on, that is social media, and we can engage them. And the idea of using celebrities to engage the young people is also key. And also there should be working capital for startups like us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to answer his question, Student Energy has different social media platforms, and our team is right at the front, and they're sending the message live to every person who is subscribed to any of our social media channels. So yeah, that's how we get to every single person, and we have chapters, and so the chapter presidents and some chapter leaders are part of this youth delegation, and they're sending the message directly to their chapter members. So that's how we take the message back home. And to answer the question about the motivation of youth, I first joined the International Student Energy Summit in 2015, and I listened to Changemaker panels like this one, and one person stood out of that Changemaker panel and showed me that he wasn't even in the energy sector to begin with, but he created change. And so I did that, and so I hope that what we did here can also inspire as more youth to come join us.
Thank you very much. And let's give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you very much for the insights that has been shared. And I believe that from here, let's engage them, and then let's learn more from them. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming for this session.